Hello and welcome to another episode of The Art of Being Human with my beautiful guest, Susan Griffin-Black, the co-founder and the co-CEO of Essential Oil Products. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and thanks for thinking of me, having me. So enjoying our brief but deep connection, and really honored to be talking with you at this time. So thank you.
Thank you. The feeling is quite mutual. I love your heart and your intentions, and we care about the same things. And I really can't wait to dive in to see what's in store in your life, what brings you to your journey so far, and what we can expect from you and your beautiful company moving forward. So start us off with telling us a little bit about your journey. Give us a Reader's Digest version of, I'm sure your story is long and beautiful, probably could write a book about it. Um, but if you could just bring us up to par where we are today with you, that'd be great.
Sure. This is our 30th year in business. We started EO in 1995, and it started as a private label project actually for Bloomingdale's. Bloomingdale's asked me to formulate four essential oil blends for the holiday catalog. I sat next to my friend who was a graphic designer at Apple at the time and came up with our name and our label. And it was very different from other natural products. It was just very elevated typeface, kind of like the Vogue typeface. And it what started from four essential oil blends evolved into our company over the next several years in the gift market at first, and then moved into the natural foods market, which was where we shopped and which was really our essential community, and really benefited from our relationship with Whole Foods and Sprouts and all the independent co-ops and natural food retailers across the country over the next 30 years. So our products are essential oil based because of the beautiful aromatic and therapeutic properties of essential oils that grow all over the world, and have been harvested and distilled all over the world for thousands of years. And many, legendary folk medicine treatments and aromatherapeutic treatments. And we take the essence of it and make very high quality, value oriented products for to enhance sort of daily rituals and enhance our day, much like fresh flowers.
How beautiful. I love how you explain, so poetic, the way that you describe the products and your journey so far. Very brief. I'm sure there's a lot more to share, which we're going to dig into. But just as long as we're on the product that you guys beautifully make, I am a huge fan of essential oils. I think that they're miraculous because when you look at their life cycle, so they've been around for so long and have such a, not only are they aromatic and therapeutic, they're also healing. They have healing qualities. So
Yes. So uh, I became really fascinated with essential oils while I was on a trend and buying trip. I was a clothing designer in my last incarnation in this life. And I was running through London on a buying trip and happened into this small apothecary. And when I walked in, the fragrance was so beautiful and so very different from, you know, the first floor cosmetics department in department stores, where I don't know so much anymore, but they used to just spritz you like crazy, or walking into, a synthetic candle store and just that waft, or you know, when my daughter was younger and was an Abercrombie and Finch shopper, I used to call it Abercrombie and Stench, because that whatever was wafting, because you know these chemicals that they make synthetic fragrance with are toxic. And as regulation comes into place and has come into place over the years more and more, especially in Europe and finally in the US, they it's almost like the difference between a real flower and a fake flower. You know, you can look at a silk rose that can be beautifully actually made and have a real rose next to it, and it could be 10 feet away. You never know the difference, but as you move closer, you know, of course the fake one may be beautiful but has no life,
Mm-hmm.
and the real rose is vitality, you know, and fragrance, and it's life.
Mm-hmm.
And we are, you know, intuitively and biologically and physiologically connected to plants and to nature. And so essential oils really remind us of that in just, you know, one inhalation. And so it changes our mood, our mind, our feeling, because your sense of smell, you know, bypasses your brain and goes right into your olfactory system.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a very immediate sort of a process that is really, you know, you can't attach to. It just happens like that. And so I've always just been so fascinated by uh, that piece of it, and
Yeah.
also the healing that results from that process, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing I love about essential oils, I think that they hit your soul. I mean, they hit more than just the brain. They operate on a whole different realm. I feel
Yeah, right
like
to your heart and right to your
Mhm.
soul, right? Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, heart, and it's nurturing, you know it's good for you. Whereas, some of those scents, a lot of people are even allergic to them when a lot of people I know avoid certain stores because they're allergic to the fragrance and whatnot. And I don't know of a single person who's allergic to essential oils of any kind.
You know, except, you know, if you're, excuse me, allergic to oranges,
Hmm.
then, you know, and you can't use orange essential oil. So, you know, it's very, and also because of essential oils being an agricultural product, we have over the years really looked at food standards and organic standards and been very involved in creating those standards so that what we're using and the way that we formulate our products is really adheres to the process of green chemistry,
Hmm.
which is as plant-based as possible and without synthetic fragrance.
Yes. And so, that's really interesting because my son had shown when he was younger, because we go to a homeopathic doctor, and he
Mm-hmm,
had found that he's allergic to certain fruits, which was so odd to
mm-hmm,
both of us. And it turned out that it was really actually the pesticides, not the fruit itself.
right. And so, you know, that when, you know, better living through chemistry sort of arose in the 50s, you know, after World War II, they came out with chemicals that were like sodium lauryl sulfate for foaming flash foam.
Hmm.
And, you know, they were very harsh, but they made a lot of foam. And were not really so good for people,
Mm-hmm.
but they worked, you know. And then we would establish safety and, you know, generally regarded as safe GRAS sort of standards around each chemical. But no one ever really thought about when you're using 40 products, you know,
Hmm.
or and just the amount of chemicals that you use in the morning or at
Yeah.
night, say, and throughout the day, and how all of those interact. And then,
Hmm.
you know, when you look at, you know, just pollution from products and synthetic fragrance, air pollution,
Mhm.
and just environmental pollution that we're exposed to. That's quite a chemical load. So it's always been in our formulations and the way we look at things to lessen that load and to educate people about that load because of the rise of all sorts of diseases and ailments that have resulted from chemical sensitivities and environmental pollution. And very concerned about public health and women's health, because women especially use with cosmetics a lot of personal care products, you know 12 by 8 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
So
Mhm. Oh yeah.
that poses quite a health threat and has for years.
For sure, for sure. And our skin and our, when we breathe it in and what we apply on our face, body, and what we breathe in goes directly into our system. So, you know,
Yes.
and anything that's in the air, of course, sits on the skin. So,
Yes.
so then skin being our largest organ,
Right.
yeah, it's definitely a concern. And I love how you have married these the benefit of the essential oils, and yet your products are affordable, high quality and affordable.
Mhm.
So how do you manage that?
Well, it's always been sort of a challenge in a way. And we started with EO, which is a premium line really based on ritual and self care. And I would say most of our customers, 90%, are women and who are aligned with self care as a very important part of their daily ritual. And um, and then we created another line of products called Everyone when my son came home with his band and 12 years ago, and I was picking up towels in the bathroom, and I looked at the products that they were using, and I was like, you know, what is this? This is terrible, right? So we had a very quick focus group, and and they were like, "Mama, we can't afford EO. It's too expensive, and the bottles are too small." So we came up with this another brand called Everyone, and we use all of the same principles and with the least expensive essential oils, because essential oils can vary in price from, you know, say $20 a liter to $1,200 a liter. And I would say, that is orange in a good year is the least expensive. And then you go all the way to things like rose and jasmine and neroli and those sort of things. And so formulating products with essential oils, because they're all a little different and finicky, it's almost like being in the wine business or the food business, how they blend and their just distinct properties has been quite an art and a science, over the years, which is why we make everything. And manufacturing that we do ourselves, even though we do it in an expensive part of the world, has been a challenge and a lifelong learning sort of experience. But
Mhm.
it's one of the ways that we've been able to keep costs and make our products affordable, because that was always the idea.
Mhm.
We wanted to make better products affordable to everyone.
Which is beautifully named, and so so I like that. What kind of products can people expect from Everyone? So EO is basically essential oils, um, and then
We
are
make, and yeah, and EO, we make bath and body care products and lotions and hand soap and hand sanitizer that we're sort of known for, organic hand sanitizer. And Everyone, much larger sizes, like family size. And we make a 3-in-1 soap that you can use for body wash and shampoo and bubble bath. And then we make a lotion, a hand and body and face lotion. And so simple products that are multi-use, multi-generational, and sort of for everyone in the family.
which is beautiful. Beautiful. And then and everyone is it has the is so everyone is a different is has different products, right? Than EO.
Yes. Yeah, everyone has the 3-in-1 and the bigger size products, and
Right.
EO is a little bit more precious and luxurious and intentional for more self-care and ritual, where everyone is go out and have fun and we got your back, you know?
That's right. It's
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful. Yes. So okay, so I got it. I got the two different brands that have been married, same principles, just different types of formulation. One is more affordable, the other one is more high end, right? Would you say yes?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. And people can find these products at Whole Foods
Whole
and where else?
Foods. Yes, Whole Foods, Amazon, Sprouts, um, every natural food store, and also stores like Safeway and Publix and Wegmans and Thrive Market, which is an online business.
Thrive Market.
Yeah,
Thrive.
iHerb. Yeah,
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that's good. So we'll put those links on the I think that we should include the links that people can purchase online
sure.
with the episode so people can access the products that they've heard about and want to try.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course. And then our own website is eoproducts.com.
and people can get everything there.
Yes.
So that's probably where what we should put on the in the note.
Sure. And then, of course, if they want to go to Amazon or in store or whatever,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
can
Okay.
do that as well.
Wonderful. So we talked about one of the challenges, which is how to keep a good product, which is expensive to formulate, expensive to bring into the market, and still keep it an affordable price point. What are some of the other challenges you faced? I love your pivot in when we originally spoke. That you were into fashion and made the pivot into essential oils and self-care products. And I think that the two actually could go very well together. I think your products can probably be sold in clothing stores or boutiques and high-end stuff. Do you offer that to people?
Well, my good friend Margaret O'Leary, who has stores nationally, we do some products sometimes together, fragrance products that we've done together. And yes, that's true. Although we've been more aligned with um, the natural food market in general as it's grown, because the people who shop there are wanting healthier products, and by eating healthy and taking care of themselves in that way, it marries up very nicely with what you put in and what you put on, and really maintaining that discretion and standards and wanting to know,
Yeah. Yeah.
which we've been very transparent about since day one. And it's an evolution always, so that especially when you make things, and I think we're makers more than marketers. Like, we could be the best kept secret for 30 years in some ways, because we've been intent on using stock bottles so that we're not spending money on customizing packaging, and we're putting our emphasis and the cost in the ingredients, and always figuring out how to make a better, safer product as new innovation happens. And sometimes our customers don't really realize that, because they have a positive experience and repurchase, but to constantly be making and care about the quality and performance, and also be concerned with and move towards innovation when we can, because something is better than the last better, that it's sometimes a little bit thankless on one end, but we get a lot of we feel really good about that way of doing things. And the
Mhm.
reason that we can do that is because we're makers and we
Mhm.
make everything. And the other reason I think is because we have grown and developed the company with initial angel investors and pretty much bank financing, and that's very different than the demands of private equity and that pressure to grow at a really hefty clip. And then, you can't really focus on the quality of the product while you're growing at that
Mhm.
clip. And then you're also, most people contract manufacture, and it's much harder to discern and get into what it takes to make a product.
I love that. I love that because, when you have the pressure of a venture capitalist, and my former career, and one of the main reasons I got out of it was in finance, and there's plenty of great people in that world that I worked with and I loved and I still love. In fact, I interviewed one of them not too long ago, just this week. I love the people in the industry, but the ethics, and the focus and concentration on the bottom line, kind of driving the motivation, the goal, the desires, has not served that industry well, because they miss out on things that bring value to humanity, like your brand. But I love that you're not tied to them. You are in control, and you can stay authentic and really centered around your mission, which is to bring beautiful, safe, products that resonate with the soul, with the self, with self-care, and all of that. That's just beautiful, Susan.
Thank you. Well, it's an honor and a privilege, right? And we wanted to create a company that we wanted to work for. And
Mhm.
especially after being in the clothing business for a lot of years, that was a very fast moving, creative, and not very conscious in a lot of ways in terms of how we were making things. And
Mhm.
so, you know, uh, I I was successful and could have kept going that way, but just because you're good at something doesn't mean that it's fulfilling.
Mhm.
So to me, that the shift over into what was more real and natural and connected to nature, and also creating a company that we would want to work for, which meant, there was plenty of room to pick up your kids when they're sick, and, you know, not overworking and not burning out, and having a really um, well-meaning and well-intentioned workplace where people could bring their whole selves to work,
Mhm.
and really sort of dismantling the negative things about corporate culture. And really, and we've been a B corporation, a benefit corporation, for many, many years. I think we were a B Corp before there were B Corps measuring, But business is really just people, and a community of people who are coming together to create something, whether it's a product or a service. And if you want to do that for the greater good and the highest good for all, then you have a very different motivation than if you're trying to make as much money as possible and cash out. And so, there are a lot of people who, and I'm not really judging it. It's just a very different, it puts you on a very different course, because your desires and intention are very different that way. And it's our 30th year this year, and we've had a lot of offers and opportunities along the way, and none of them really have made sense, so far. So now when we look at it, we think of, how can we continue, because a lot of companies don't make it to 30. It's a very small percentage, right?
Yes,
Um, yeah. So then the exit questions and succession questions have a lot more to do with, you know, uh, what people want to do, who are integral to running the company, and what what our future is together and how do we make that real. So, ideas like, alternative ideas like perpetual trust or ways of exiting over time um, have become very interesting, more than acquisition.
Yeah, I mean, when you travel to Europe and you mentioned that you like to travel and you do travel and you notice different things in different cultures. But one of the things you notice when you go to Europe, for example, is how many companies you see, how many stores you go into that have people in fragrance business for decades,
Yeah.
since the
And
1800s.
sometimes centuries. Yes.
Centuries, yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that. I think that, if you have a sustainable, if you have, you already have an authentic brand that's really that's sustainable, that nurtures the soul, it's good for the body, it's good for the human experience, it's good for self-care. That is a brand that could withstand the test of time over time over time. And I think it's something that you can, really turn it into a family legacy. Don't you think? I would love to see
I
that for you. I'd love to see that for you.
Well, it's so funny because we have two kids. They're both artists and they're successful, and I see them. Before it was like, oh no way, we're not the least bit interested. But I see them, taking a little, oh, you know, your your social, but maybe I could contribute there, or maybe I could write some copy over there. My son's a musician and songwriter. My daughter's a multimedia artist. So, and then nieces and nephews and other friends of family, and just sort of how people migrate, you know, to
Mhm.
us and have mutual interests. So, and even people who are working now, what their kids are doing, right? So it's it's very interesting to watch it unfold. And I think if you would have asked me at an earlier time, I would have thought it's about acquisition and a pile of money. But the longer I am fortunate enough to be in good health and keep working, it just isn't really about that.
Mm-mm. No, especially with what you do. I mean, there are some people, I mean, if you're in the financial field, if you're in a stressful field, and also I think a lot of it has to do with your attitude and presence, Susan, because no matter what industry you're in, you can be absorbed by the stress and anxiety. I remember working with a lady who was in the flower business. And her position, and you think of flowers, you think it's just such a lovely,
I
you
know.
just go in.
I always wanted to, yes,
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
but do you know one of the things she told me? One
Mm.
of the things she shared with me is that the flower business is the most stressful business you could ever imagine.
Because what? Because she goes to the market so early and because of the, so tell me, yeah,
So
why?
her reason for that, and I could totally empathize with this because she served the entertainment
Oh, yeah.
and event planning.
Mhm.
So the day that she had this conversation with me, she's not a client or anything. I just happened to go in to pick up some flowers for somebody, and I know her. She does immaculate work. She's just incredibly talented and beautiful. And so I went in to pick it up, and that's when she told me, she said that we've worked with her in events and stuff like that, and everything was always really really nice. So we were her clients, and since then she's closed her shop sadly, but she said that it was for weddings. The day
Mm.
with the wedding, she was trying to deliver all of these different flower arrangements and they weren't coming together. But she said I said, is it just this wedding that's driving you this way? Because it's always, I've had such a wonderful experience with you, but she was frazzled, and I think that it's really your own presence and the way life occurs to a single person. I think it has a lot to do with how they run the company, run the business, etc. Do you believe that that's true?
Yes, I think it sort of depends what each of us want to learn, and uh, for myself, I could just say I've always been a seeker. and very curious and very sort of spiritually oriented and in an authentic way. So I've been a Zen Buddhist student for 30 plus years. And that for me has helped certainly the way my perspective and, um, and also level of capacity for compassion and understanding just our human condition, and what how to serve in the best way, which for me has taken me off of the path of any sort of, I'm very ambitious and I've had to grapple with that,
Mhm.
with these other things. But in the grappling of it, I think my ambition really leans more towards justice and fairness and kindness than anything material. But it's so easy to get off track because everything's so seductive, and
Mhm.
and all of these other opportunities exist. And so,
Mhm.
which part of you are you going to feed, and where do you find the most peaceful heart and loving heart, and purpose? So, and I think it's, each and every one of us, uh, if we want to look at that, then you find all sorts of very rich material in there. And if you're inclined to do personal work and sort of figure out who you are and why you're here, then, which each and every one of us can do if they want to, then you come up with sort of a very different way of looking at things.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I love your heart seeking and your ambitions leading you to justice, fairness, and kindness. Um, is That's a beautiful thing. I love hearing CEOs talk about virtues.
Mm.
Because it just really speaks to your longevity and your success. I think it's because it's when you have a higher purpose that is outside of our personal needs and wants and desires, and you care for the good of all, for the greater good. I think that that is a level of connection with people that resonates deeply, especially now moving forward. That level of authenticity that we were talking about earlier. I think people are just tired of pretense. They're tired of skin deep brands, no matter if they're in the beauty brand, self-care, healthcare, or even in artificial intelligence. I think there's talk when a few several years ago when there was a talk about AI and its dangers. I wrote a white paper on empathy, compassion, and altruism in AI. That It started a lot of interesting conversations with CEOs. But I think that as a humanity, we're ready for the next level. We're ready
Mhm.
for all of us to evolve, and brands like yours, I think, resonates. So I think you have a lot, and there's so many. Another thing I love about your company is that it has so many different applications, so many different things you could do to touch people's lives.
Mhm. Yes. And so I was at a conference yesterday about regenerative, uh, how do we practice regenerativity, and how does that intersect with AI, and how are we using it? Because, you know, people are afraid it's going to take their jobs, or there's a lot of fear around it and resistance in some ways, or they think, or that it presents an easier path and less work, right?
Hmm.
Mm. Which I think it's another tool, really, that in, enhances and enriches us, and then we have to, you know, use it. It's how we use it, right? And
Exactly.
like any other tool that we've adopted over the years, whether it goes from the telex to fax to email to, and the fear piece of it, I'm so curious as to really what the best applications are. And if we can relieve ourselves of less interesting work to create more interesting and engaged work, well, that's great always, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very interested and curious as to how this unfolds.
How it evolves, because it's all
Mm-hmm.
about, when it comes to any company, I think. I mean, and I've worked with all kinds of industries from manufacturing to electronics and everything in between. I think what separates the longevity of a company is how tuned in they are to innovation and evolution of their brand, because it's all about, yes, we want to make a good product. Yes, we want it good for the environment, because that's really the core people who work with us. Truly, it's people who care. They don't come to a Think Virtues company that's about consciousness that is anything other than that. The intention is always really good, high integrity, very courageous and bold. But I think one of the common threads I've seen over the years working with CEOs so deeply and closely is the fact that they are open to exploring, pushing their brand. And you never know. You can come up with an idea that could be a multi-billion-dollar idea,
Mm-hmm.
in delivery. It truly, and I'm not exaggerating.
Yes. And no, I mean, I remember stumbling onto organic hand sanitizer because we were saying, well, if you have to use, I'm not a germaphobe, but if you have to use hand sanitizer, can't we make it beautiful? Can't we make it, a uplifting experience by introducing essential oils and, you know, organic alcohol made from sugar cane instead of the other, synthetic alcohols that are available. And that was, maybe in 2005, I'm thinking. And here we are through H1N1. That was 2008. And I remember being we were very challenged and we were going to go to a 4-day work week. That was always something that we did because when, in order to avoid catastrophe and crisis, when revenue was down and we were manufacturing, we would for weeks at a time if we had to, or 2 months at a time, just move to a 4-day work week
Mhm.
until business came back.
Mhm.
And that was a tool that we used for adjusting the
Mhm.
ups and downs rather than layoffs.
Yeah.
And that has served us in a couple of instances over the years. And then right as we were about to do that, H1N1 hit, and at that time the fax machine was going off, and we got all sorts of orders. So that crisis was mitigated by revenue and orders and so forth. But the up and down of COVID for us, because we're in this sanitizer business, it was a public health issue, and our first task was to make sure that all the hospitals had enough hand sanitizer,
Mhm.
that we were close to. And and I remember being interviewed by the Wall Street Journal, and they asked if we raised our prices. And I
Mhm.
thought, who are we, like Satan? Like, we're going to raise our prices now in the middle of a public health crisis? Like, who does that? And then the downturn, when we had, zillions of pallets of over inventory materials and packaging and so forth. I thought about that question again, and I thought, we could have used that extra, if we would have planned one, but not really. But I'm just saying, you just
Sure.
sort of, you never know what the ups and downs are going to be. So, which leads to, in a B Corp for all stakeholders, the idea has been people, planet, purpose above profit.
Mhm.
And then after COVID, I would have to say that, no margin, no mission,
Mhm.
or top line vanity, bottom line sanity. We learned a whole, nother like host of lessons
Yeah.
by the up and downness of that,
Yeah.
that all business is challenged by, but much deeper and better perspective on the the connection between profitability and sustainability and responsibility. So I think that our risk mitigation really came as part of our language that was just was really not in our vocabulary before that. So
Yeah.
these are hard lessons to learn and come out the other side. But I think anyone who sticks around has
Yes.
has learned them.
Yes, and I think that they're industry agnostic, these lessons, no matter
Yeah.
what industry you're in. Of course, the application is different, but the concept and the principles are the same. That, making sure that your priorities are straight, you're very clear about them, and you're certain about them, and you're not going to compromise, and you have both your short-term and long-term vision uh,
Mhm.
in mind, so you make the right choices, because the bottom line is that our success and failures have a lot to do with what choices we make.
So true. And I can say that, like, from moving too fast and being overwhelmed, that my choices and our choices um, were not always aligned with our values in a certain way
Mhm.
because of the pressure, and
Mhm.
that can happen. And so, in seeing that, hindsight's always 2020, right? But the use of it is learning, right?
Yes.
Can we not make the same mistake over and over? Can we make a different mistake and learn something different, right? So yeah,
Yes.
so
Yes.
that's the silver lining, and also that we're still in business
Yes.
is
Yes.
good. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You know what? And I think that that is such an important point, because I think that one of the things that mitigates this fast pace making, I don't think there's anything wrong with making fast moves and fast decision, but it has to be predicated by a well thought out strategy. Because when you
Yes, and then you can move on it, right?
then you can move fast. So it's really preemptive, preventative thing, being ahead of a issue, being ahead of things down the line, because we have problems and opportunities all the time,
Mhm.
every second. But if we have a strategy that kind of knows the landmines as well as the gold mines, then you can come out the other end, victorious in a thriving fashion that doesn't overwhelm or burn out.
Yeah.
Yeah, would you agree with that? I mean, I think that your insight is important because you've been
Mhm.
around, you've seen it, right? Did you find that when you took the time and strategized, you had a different outcome than when you didn't? Strategy meaning, year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year plan kind
No,
of.
no, no, absolutely. Um, strategic alignment and understanding where to pivot and how to pivot from that strategic alignment, especially when um, the leadership is values based,
Hmm.
is uh, it goes deep. And
Hmm.
so, and the deeper it goes, really the better for everyone. But when
Hmm.
you're pressed for time, that depth is sort of sometimes, in my experience, challenged
Hmm.
by that, the pressure to produce. And
Correct.
and sometimes that works, you know, and and uh but then you got to pay for it in some other way.
Yeah.
So there's
Exactly.
there's no free lunch.
Yes.
so
Yeah.
so then so then it just seems like, if you can, then you go slow to go fast, because
Yes.
the go slow part is, we're all moving together with the same purpose and the same vision. And even though we have differences and individual differences, collectively we're like-minded enough to know where we're going and want to go there together.
Precisely. Couldn't agree more. We're on the same page. To me,
Yes.
the slow part is the strategy part.
Mhm.
Because, exploring different opportunities, pushing the envelopes, trying it, testing it out, even mentally, even on a board, even on a bunch of sticky pads. Uh,
Mhm.
and then envisioning the trajectory, and then moving fast on what resonates,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So what would you say is your biggest lesson, the biggest lesson that you've learned in business?
I think the significance of doing personal work to be values aligned so that you're bringing your whole self to the table in the best way possible, and curiosity, and being a lifelong learner, um, and empowering other people to do their best work, are some of the things I've learned along the way, and gratitude, you know.
Mm, I love it. You see me smiling ear to ear because you're like singing my praise. This is
We're
exactly
very, yes, we're
very aligned.
very aligned.
I think we discovered that on our discovery call, on the first conversation we had, very much aligned. It's such an important thing that most CEOs don't learn until later in life. I think it's something that eventually, but I think when CEOs first begin, what they're focused on is really nailing it, coming up with a solution that works absolutely, and how quickly they can get to that success. And sometimes it works. We see that. And sometimes it's filled with harsh lessons that can be avoided if they really took the time and did the inner deep work.
Mhm. Agreed.
Yeah, yeah. So what is your vision for the future? Where do you see? I know we talked about some of the possibilities, but where do you see yourself in 10 years?
That's a really good question right now, and we're thinking a lot about it. You know, we want to be proactive and flexible, and understand what our choices are given, and then you know, the idea of stopping work with a pile of money to give it away, do something else, da da da, is um is not really on my radar anymore. And I think what is mentoring, empowering, and serving, because we have a lot to share given what we've created and what we've been through, and to be a beacon for other small companies and manufacturing in this country, because if we can do it, you can do it, and we can show you how, you know.
Mhm.
And I think that's really important right now,
Of
and it
course.
seems, really important to um, younger people who are really searching for meaning, and all of us in searching for connection.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. What a beautiful thing. And I would love for you to see whose lives you touch. I'm sure that you're very magnetic.
Mm.
You're very beautiful. You're so open-hearted, such a phenomenal leader. And for me personally, I meet a lot of younger leaders who are ambitious and want to go into the entrepreneurship and maybe perhaps their brand. And I will have them listen to this episode for inspiration and look you
Thank
up and see all the wonderful things you do, and perhaps they can learn from this podcast, from this interview, and I'd love to have you back. um
thank you.
I think
Well,
going
I thank you. I have to say, I'm just so happy to know you, and for us to be connected. You do such beautiful work in the world, and it's a beautiful thing to have met each other this way.
Wonderful. I thank you so much. And I think that there are my belief is that there's no accidents in this world, and the people we reach out to are people who I think we're meant to, or people who connect with us are the people who are meant to be in our lives for a long time. I'm a relationship builder. I love building long-term relationships with people who
Me
I
too.
meet along the way. And so I am so grateful that we met. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to interview you, ask you about your life experiences, your ambitions, and your vision and who you are, the person. The most impressive thing about you is the person you are. You're just a beautiful soul, beautiful expression of life. And thank you for the time that you spent with us.
Thank you. Mutual love fest, my friend, and look forward to continuing our conversation. And thank you so very much for having me.
My pleasure. Is there anything else you would like? We're of course going to have your website as the link. Is there anything else you would like to share with our audience?
Um, no, I think we got it. I think just all best to all. Always, thinking of the big vision of that we're way more the same than we are different. And
Yeah.
and that bringing people together is we're just better together.
Absolutely. And one of the things I would like to add is that self-care is so important with a new year beginning 2025. I think that most people, I really invite people to prioritize self-care. And what better way than with beautiful products from a beautiful person,
Thank
EO, and
you.
and all the wonderful things you guys make and deliver beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you. And just all best.